My girlfriend dumped me because I didn't like the new Snow White movie. She said it revealed my true character. I laughed, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. So I did this, and now she's begging to get back together. You ever have one of those moments where you're watching your life fall apart in slow motion, but the soundtrack is a Disney princess belting about female empowerment while CGI birds flap around her like they're on caffeine? Because I have. It was a Friday night. One of those rare evenings when I didn't have emails to answer or laundry to fold or dishes whispering passive-aggressively from the sink. Lena, my girlfriend of just over a year, had insisted we see the new Snow White remake. Now, I'd already seen the reviews. I mean, I wasn't actively trying to sabotage the evening, but I also wasn't going to pretend this film was an Oscar contender. Critics had called it unwatchable, unintentionally hilarious, and my personal favorite, a cursed TikTok filter stretched into 2 hours. But Lena was excited. This is going to be a reimagining, she told me in the car, eyes wide like she was heading to church. It's not about a man saving her this time. It's about agency, autonomy, inner power. I said something like, "Cool, I like agency," because I figured that was the correct boyfriend response. Plus, I was genuinely curious. I don't mind when stories get updated. I just prefer when the updates work. We get there. Theater's half full. Popcorn's mediocre. Lena's already tearing up before the trailers even start. And then the movie begins. It's hard to explain what we watched. Imagine if Snow White was rewritten by a room full of marketing interns who'd skimmed a feminist blog once and decided that subtlety was for cowards. Every line of dialogue was a sermon. Every character looked like they wanted to escape the script. The evil queen had more depth than Snow White, and the CGI dwarfs, who were now just magical forest dwellers, looked like AI-generated hobbits stuck in beta. Halfway through, there was this musical number. Snow White twirling in the forest, singing about leading without asking, or ruling without needing love. I don't know, the lyrics were a fever dream, and I let out a small, involuntary chuckle. Not a laugh, mind you. Just a soft exhale of disbelief. A noise any normal person would make when watching something painfully awkward. Lena turned and looked at me like I'd just taken a dump on her childhood. I whispered, "Sorry," even though I wasn't. She didn't say anything. Just kept staring at the screen like it was a live feed from a women's rights protest, and I'd just booed. After the movie, we walked out in silence. I was waiting for her to crack a joke. Something like, "Well, that was a bold choice." But no, her jaw was tight. She was breathing the way people do before they deliver news that requires immediate therapy. In the car, she finally spoke. "I can't believe you laughed." Laughed. I blinked. It was one breath. Not even a full ha. She stared at the dashboard like it had betrayed her. "It's not just that. It's what it says about you." "What it says?" She turned to me. "You didn't get it. You mocked it." "I didn't mock it," I said. "I just acknowledged it was bad." She shook her head. "It wasn't bad. It was bold. Challenging. It broke the mold. It also broke my attention span." Wrong answer. She pulled into my driveway and stopped the car without turning it off. "I don't think we're compatible." I blinked. "Wait, what?" "You don't understand the importance of representation, or evolution, or progress." "Because I didn't like Snow White?" "No, because you laughed at it," she snapped. "And you didn't even try to see the deeper meaning." "Lena," I said slowly, "I sat through 2 hours of what felt like a sponsored TED Talk with rhinestones. I think I tried." She turned off the engine. "This isn't just about a movie. It's about how you see the world. And I don't think I can be with someone who doesn't share my values. You're breaking up with me. Because I didn't like a remake of a 1930s cartoon." "I'm breaking up with you," she said, stepping out of the car, "because I just realized I've been dating someone who doesn't believe in growth." She got back in the driver's seat, shut the door, and drove off. And I stood in my driveway, holding a half-eaten bag of popcorn, wondering if I'd hallucinated the whole evening. Because here's the thing, I get having principles. I respect passion. I even understand getting emotional over stories. But I didn't cheat. I didn't lie. I didn't scream at her mom or vote against her favorite cause. I laughed during Snow White. And just like that, I was single. That night, I sat on my couch, scrolling through bad movie reviews like they held the answers to my life. Was this rock bottom? Maybe. But at least rock bottom had Wi-Fi and frozen pizza. I texted my friend Ryan. "I got dumped because of Snow White." He replied, "Like the Disney one?" Yes. Good. You were too normal for her anyway. I smiled. Just a little. Because yeah, it was ridiculous. But it also hurt. I'd spent a year caring for someone who thought I was disposable the second my opinion didn't align with hers. Who turned a dumb movie into a litmus test for my worth as a person. And I didn't even get to finish my popcorn. But I wasn't going to text her. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't even going to post about it, yet. Because something told me this wasn't really about Snow White. Not entirely. Something told me the story wasn't over. Not even close. Breakups are weird. One minute you're sharing playlists and grocery lists, and the next you're sitting on the edge of your bed wondering if you're allowed to eat the last granola bar without it being symbolic. It had been 3 days since Lena left me over Snow White, and I was still trying to decide which part was more surreal. The fact that she'd walked away from our entire relationship because I laughed during a musical number, or the fact that I didn't even like the original Snow White. I was never invested in the reboot to begin with. The only thing I liked less than Disney's obsession with reboots was paying $18 for the privilege of watching them. And yet here I was, dumped, alone, questioning the metaphysical implications of a CGI forest. I spent the first day after the breakup in silent disbelief. You know the phase, where you replay the conversation over and over like it was a courtroom deposition. I kept thinking, did I say something worse than I remember? Was my tone too sarcastic? Did I trigger some hidden trauma related to enchanted apples? The second day was rage. Not loud, dramatic rage, just quiet, simmering oh wow. I really did all that emotional labor for someone who ghosted me over a movie rage. And by day 3, I moved into analysis mode. That's when the flashbacks started rolling in. The first red flag? The Encanto fight. We'd watched it together last year. After the credits rolled, Lena was emotional. Teary even. I liked it too. I said the animation was great, and the music was catchy. I may have said something like, it was nice, not life-changing, but nice. That sentence nearly cost me dinner. She accused me of minimizing immigrant generational trauma. I thought we were still talking about Bruno. Another time, I made the mistake of saying I didn't really connect with The Handmaid's Tale. I didn't say it was bad. I said it made me feel depressed and hopeless. Lena told me that was a privileged response, and that I had a moral duty to sit with discomfort. I nodded and said, you're right, because at the time, I still thought saying, you're right, was an investment in relationship peace, not an installment in a slow-moving emotional Ponzi scheme. Looking back, the pattern was obvious. Lena didn't just love stories. She weaponized them. Every film, every show, every book, it wasn't just entertainment. It was a moral litmus test. If I liked the wrong thing, I was uninformed. If I didn't cry at the right moment, I was emotionally unavailable. And if I disliked something she loved, that meant we were fundamentally incompatible. But I didn't see it then, because in between those moments were genuinely great ones. We had this rhythm. We cooked together. We joked about our coworkers. We had matching slippers. I thought that counted for something. Apparently not. Apparently, I failed the princess test. And the more I reflected, the more something else started to itch at the back of my mind. The way she ended it. This isn't just about a movie, she'd said. It's about your values. Your worldview. That line didn't come out of nowhere. It was too prepared. Too polished. Like it had been written, rewritten, and stored in a notes app until the right opportunity came along. That's when it hit me. She didn't break up with me over Snow White. She'd already made up her mind. The movie was just the excuse. Suddenly, the emotional math made sense. In the weeks leading up to the breakup, she'd been distant, subtly critical, asking loaded questions like, do you think you're emotionally present enough in this relationship? Or, what would you say your moral compass is rooted in? At the time, I thought we were having deep, reflective conversations. Now I realized I was being evaluated for an ideological performance I hadn't agreed to audition for. It was like dating a film critic who reviewed you instead of the movie. And that brought me to another realization. Lena wasn't angry because I laughed during Snow White. She was angry because she finally had something she could point to and say, see, this is why it won't work. It wasn't a breakup. It was a closing argument. Later that night, I got curious, dangerously curious, and checked her social media. Just to see. Her Instagram story was a black screen with white text that read, sometimes the hardest thing is realizing someone you love doesn't stand for what you believe in. #moving forward, #letting go, #self-worth. No mention of Snow White, of course. That would have sounded unhinged. But she was clearly framing me as the emotionally stunted villain in her personal hero's journey. That's when I realized what I was really feeling. Not heartbreak. Not bitterness. Defamation. Okay, not legally. But the narrative was being hijacked, and I was being quietly turned into the guy who didn't get it. The ex-boyfriend who lacked depth. The man who laughed when it mattered most. And that didn't sit right with me. So I did what any normal, slightly petty, mostly sarcastic person would do. I wrote about it. Not to name names. Not to start drama. Just to process it. I posted in a mid-sized forum. Not Reddit's front page or anything public enough to cause backlash. Just a space for relationship stories, half rants, half reflections. The title? Got dumped because I didn't like Snow White. No, seriously. I expected a few replies. Maybe one or two sarcastic takes. Instead, the comments rolled in. Some people found it hilarious. Others shared their own breakups over nonsense stories. Someone got dumped for saying they preferred Pepsi. Another because they didn't cry during The Fault in Our Stars. But one comment stood out. It was from someone who said, if she broke up with you over that, she didn't leave you because of your worldview, she left you because she wanted a reason. That hit, because it felt true. And as I read that, a message popped up on my phone. From Lena. Just one line. Hey, can we talk? And I knew this story wasn't over yet. Hey, can we talk? 4 words. No context. No punctuation except the ellipses, which made it even worse. There's something about an ellipsis that feels like someone softly knocking on your mental door at 3 a.m. with absolutely no plan once you open it. I stared at her message for a full minute, unsure whether to laugh, roll my eyes, or forward it to the Disney help desk with a note. Your movie broke my relationship. Please advise. After a moment, I locked my phone and put it face down. Another moment later, I flipped it over and replied. About what? I figured if she wanted to start a conversation, she could be the one to explain what kind of conversation we were having. Casual catch-up? Closure? Attempted reunion? Trial by ideology? She replied almost instantly. Not over text. Can we meet? And just like that, I was back in the interrogation chair. Only this time, I had the benefit of hindsight, context, and several thousand online strangers who had reassured me I wasn't the only person who'd been emotionally mugged over media criticism. I agreed to meet. We chose a coffee shop. Neutral ground. Public. Well-lit. A place where even the most intense emotional manipulations would have to be whispered. I got there early. Ordered black coffee. Sat by the window like someone who wasn't half curious and half terrified of what came next. Lena arrived 5 minutes late, looking polished but off. Like someone who had dressed confidently but hadn't slept well. She sat down and gave a tight smile. Thanks for meeting me. I nodded. Sure. There was an awkward silence while she stirred her tea like it had personally offended her. Then she launched into it. I've been thinking a lot about what happened, she said. And I realized maybe I overreacted. I raised an eyebrow. Overreacted. To your reaction. I should have been more open-minded about your perspective. It sounded rehearsed. Like she'd said it out loud in front of a mirror at least 3 times before showing up. I waited. She looked at me expectantly. You dumped me over a movie, I said finally. Then posted vague, dramatic quotes like I'd betrayed the resistance. That wasn't about you. It literally was. She sighed. Okay, maybe it was. But I didn't expect people to take it the way they did. Ah, there it was. This wasn't an apology, it was PR damage control. I heard about the post you made, she said, eyes flicking up at me. The one where you joked about the breakup. I sipped my coffee. Didn't name you. No, but everyone knew it was me. Not really, I said. Unless they had prior knowledge of your deep spiritual connection to a movie with 14% on Rotten Tomatoes. She blinked. I smiled politely. But go on. She leaned forward. I just feel like I was made to look irrational. Like I ended things over nothing. Well, I said, I wouldn't say nothing. You ended it over a Disney remake that most people watched through their fingers. You're missing the point. No, I said calmly. I think I finally got the point. You didn't break up with me because of Snow White. You used it as a pretext. Her jaw tightened. You'd already made up your mind, I continued. The movie just gave you a neat little stage to perform it on. That's not fair, she said. Isn't it? You'd been pulling away for weeks. Questioning my values. Making weird comments like, I just don't know if you see the world the right way. I thought we were having deep conversations. Turns out, I was being interviewed. She looked down, and I passed until I laughed during the wrong scene. She didn't respond to that. Instead, she said, "I miss you." I sat back. Because sure, I missed her too. I missed the parts of her that used to laugh at my dumb jokes and send me voice notes about birds she saw on the way to work. I missed the late-night ramen runs and Sunday laundry days where we'd fold clothes while watching documentaries we barely finished. But I didn't miss being on trial. I didn't miss walking on eggshells. I didn't miss wondering whether my next movie review would be seen as a moral failing. I didn't say any of that. Instead, I said, "So why did you want to meet?" She hesitated. "I guess. I thought maybe we could try again, now that we've had some space. Even though I still don't like Snow White." That earned the faintest smile. Maybe I overestimated how much that mattered. I nodded slowly. Or maybe you underestimated how much everything else did. And there it was. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sarcastic. I was just tired. Tired of trying to justify basic human disagreements as evidence of deep incompatibility. Tired of relationships where liking or disliking a film was treated like an ethical stance. She didn't reply. We sat in silence for a moment, the hum of espresso machines filling the space where "I'm sorry" probably should have gone. Eventually, she stood up. "Well," she said, "it was good seeing you." "You too." And she left. I stayed a while longer, finishing my coffee, staring out the window. Later that evening, I got another message. This one from a mutual acquaintance. "Just so you know, Lena's been telling people you wrote that post to control the narrative and punish her emotionally. Thought you should hear it from someone who doesn't buy it." I didn't reply. I just sat with it. Because of course she did. And suddenly, it wasn't just about Snow White. It wasn't even about the breakup. It was about control. Narrative. How people rewrite reality to suit their version of events. And what happens when you quietly, calmly refuse to let them. And I knew I was never going back. Because the moment you realize someone values their image of you more than you, that's when you stop apologizing for breathing wrong. That's when you walk away. For real this time. But yeah, I still don't like Snow White. I didn't answer the message. The one from our mutual friend telling me Lena was now saying I wrote the post to punish her. That I was manipulating public perception and weaponizing storytelling. I had to read that line twice just to confirm I wasn't hallucinating. Weaponizing storytelling. I mean, sure, I used a few snappy lines. Maybe I got a little too poetic with the popcorn analogy. But if telling people the truth about how your girlfriend dumped you over Snow White now counts as psychological warfare, then I guess I'm some kind of low-budget Bond villain with a Wi-Fi connection and a mild caffeine dependency. I didn't reply. Not to the friend. Not to Lena. Not to anyone. I figured if the point of the last year of my life was to slowly teach me the value of silence, I might as well graduate with honors. But the fallout wasn't as easy to ignore as I'd hoped. That weekend, I got 2 messages from people I hadn't spoken to in months. Both opened with some variation of, "So, I heard about the breakup," which is never a fun way to start a conversation. One of them was Lena's ex-roommate, who proceeded to tell me, very politely, that Lena was now referring to me as emotionally repressive and politically indifferent. Which I've got to say, is a bold accusation to throw at someone who once sat through a 6-part documentary on plastic pollution without checking his phone. But sure, let's add politically indifferent to the list of crimes. It was almost impressive. I'd been dumped less than a week ago, and I was already being painted as a morally vacant emotional zombie with no understanding of narrative nuance. All because I didn't cry when CGI Snow White said something about inner sovereignty. At one point, I told a friend, if I'd known the stakes were this high, I would have taken notes during the film. She laughed, but the truth was, I felt this weird mix of frustration and freedom. Frustration, because no matter what I said or did, Lena was going to spin the story. And freedom, because for once I didn't have to play along. By Monday, I started getting follow-up comments on my original post. Nothing viral, just a slow trickle of strangers chiming in with things like, "You dodged a bullet." Imagine staying in a relationship where you need a Disney-approved worldview just to survive. This happened to my brother, except it was about Avatar, the way of water and veganism. The internet's a weird place, but also kind of healing in the most dysfunctional way. Still, I didn't want to be known as the Snow White guy. That wasn't the legacy I'd envisioned for myself. I had hobbies. I had a real job. I once built a standing desk out of plywood and stubbornness. I had more to offer the world than breakup satire. But something about this whole thing stuck with me. Not the drama, not the breakup, the story. Because here's what I realized. The problem wasn't that Lena loved that movie. The problem was that she used it as a morality test, and I failed by having a sense of humor. It was never about the film. It was about control. And I wasn't supposed to laugh. I was supposed to agree, nod solemnly, validate her outrage, parrot it back with more emphasis, like a mirror, not a man. And when I didn't, she walked. And then she narrated my walkout as a personal betrayal of her values, of femininity, of art, of her. It was bizarre. It was manipulative. It was also familiar. Because once I started thinking about it, I realized how many conversations we'd had where I'd been quietly correcting myself mid-sentence. How many shows I'd pretended to like. How many jokes I'd softened just in case she didn't find them emotionally constructive. It's not that I was afraid of her. I was afraid of what version of me she'd create next if I ever said the wrong thing. And now, that version was out there. Being told to friends, co-workers, maybe even strangers at the cafe she liked to write poetry in. I could hear it now. He just didn't get it. He laughed when I was crying. He refused to grow. But I did grow. Just not in the direction she wanted me to. Tuesday morning, I walked to the bookstore near my place and bought myself a copy of The Uses of Enchantment. It's a book about fairy tales. My little nod to poetic justice. I also bought a hot sandwich and a cappuccino and sat by the window, watching a dad try to wrangle a toddler who wanted to wear a plastic sword into a pet store. The kid kept yelling, "I'm a king." And honestly, same, buddy. When I got home, I opened a blank document and just wrote. Not about Lena. Not even about the movie. Just about how strange it is that people use stories to justify treating each other like they're characters in a film, someone to root for or villainize. Like life is one long metaphor, and your partner's opinion on a screenplay can somehow reveal the content of their soul. It felt good to write something honest. Not performative. Not bitter. Just mine. So yeah, that's where I am now. Single. Relieved. Still low-key annoyed every time someone mentions that movie. But also clear-eyed. Grounded. And more importantly, free. Free from walking on eggshells. Free from being interpreted. Free from sitting through movies with the fear that one raised eyebrow might turn into an indictment of my character. It's weird to say this out loud, but I'm grateful. Grateful to be out of something that looked like love, but felt like surveillance. And grateful I had a place to tell the story. Because yes, some people told me I overreacted. Some said I should have begged her to take me back. Some said, "It's just a movie, dude." But others told me I wasn't crazy. That I was allowed to laugh. That having boundaries isn't a moral flaw. And yeah, I know not everything needs to be posted online. I know some people will roll their eyes and call this whole thing petty. But sometimes, writing something down is how you make peace with the parts of your life that didn't make sense while they were happening. So yeah, I got dumped over a Disney movie. And if that's the most absurd sentence I ever write, I think I'm doing okay. Thanks for reading. And hey, what do you think? Was I overreacting, or did I dodge something big? Let me know below.